Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy TheGamingTrouge here. Quick, you're in combat. What do? Do you A, break out the tops, B, break out the cards, C, break out the carts, or D, break out the fighting games? Yeah, you like some fisticuffs, huh? Well, I got just the game for number D. The bully still punched me regardless. Out of all the genres of video games, fighting games are the ones I have the most fun with. Whether playing casually with friends or you have a personal beef with someone, fighting games are the perfect way to connect one's fists without, lawsuits. Whether it be with characters I knew through anime or cartoon series to some of video games' greatest characters, fighting games have always had a special place in my heart. But fighting games come in all different shapes and sizes. However, today we are going to be talking about what is arguably the grandfather of the fighting game genre, meeting up with one of the most prolific fighting games of all time. Street Fighter x Tekken. First and foremost, before we get into that, I want to explain my history with not only both of these franchises, but my history with fighting games like this as a whole. I am no professional. The gameplay you've probably seen is probably one of the worst gameplays you can probably ever find here on YouTube. Around 80% of the time I play these types of games to have fun, and I don't really play a bunch of fighting games competitively. If you want a good competitive fighting game, I will say Super Smash Bros. I'm one of those guys. And yes, I do consider Smash Bros. A fighting game, it's in the darn genre. Short lane aside, let's talk about my history with both Street Fighter and Tekken. With Street Fighter, I first played this game at a friend's house who doesn't typically play a ton of video games, but he had Street Fighter on the Super Nintendo, and we played it and had so much fun. We also laughed about the fact that Chun-Li can split her legs into 3 whenever you pause it just right. We wouldn't get our hands on another Street Fighter game until we played Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition. This game basically ate up my entire Xbox 360 playtime for a while there, with fast combos. The arcade mode actually had story cutscenes, which was really cool. Graphically, musically, it checks all the boxes for me and made me a bona fide fan of Street Fighter. Not only was I a fan of this game, but also everyone else who wasn't really that big into fighting games got their start here. Not only was I a fan of Street Fighter, but anything Capcom produced, like X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Oh, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. Spent a lot of time on this game. There's a reason I got excited in that last Nintendo Direct. Oh, X-Men vs. Street Fighter! What? Street Fighter is just legendary to me. But what about the other side of the coin? Tekken is a bit of a weird beast to me because I have heard of the series through passing. I knew it was an iconic fighting game like Street Fighter, but I never actually took the time to understand what made this game series so special to many people. I knew the franchise well enough to get hyped for the people that wanted him in games like Super Smash Bros, but beyond that, my knowledge of Tekken was very limited. But cut to 2022, and I stumble upon a lore video talking about the wackiness of Tekken, and it intrigues me. It intrigues me so much that I actually got what many consider to be the black sheep of the series, Tekken 4. One day I would do a full video talking about this, but straight into the point, the box art looks nice, and on top of that, this is where the lore really started to pick up. But around launch of Tekken 8, I picked up Tekken 7 for $10 on the Xbox storefront for Xbox One, and this game is super fun. I love the different types of characters. They got freaking Noctis from Final Fantasy in the game. It's just a fun time all around. One of my favorite fighting games of the last decade. Not to mention the character Akuma from Street Fighter also makes an appearance as a plot important character in the lore of Tekken, now bringing everything full circle. I'm still actively wanting to play every Tekken game, but I have yet to play as much Tekken as I did Street Fighter. But before I continue on, I will say something. The lore is what drove me to Tekken, but also I love the lore in all the fighting games I've ever played. It's like putting together the Millennium Puzzle. All the pieces are there, but it's up to you to put it together. Now, as a fan of both Street Fighter and Tekken, I was scrolling through the Xbox 360 store before the inevitable end, and I found a game I was shocked it was that low. Street Fighter Cross Tekken was a game that I always see that was basically like $40 minimum. So to see the digital version was $2, I had to jump on that. What's crazier than me buying this for $2 though was the fact that this game's development is a story all in itself. At San Diego Comic-Con 2010, Yoshi Oinaro and Kazuya Harada of Street Fighter and Tekken respectively came on stage and announced that they're working on a new project together, and it was actually a crossover between Tekken and Street Fighter. This was a big deal for everybody because Tekken and Street Fighter has never crossed over with each other until this point. But an interesting take is that this game is going to be in the style of Street Fighter, while they're in development making a game that's going to be closer to Tekken's 3D gameplay. Unfortunately, the latter ended up getting scrapped for things I will talk about later, but it was still a good idea at the time, and I still feel like with the popularity of Street Fighter and Tekken now, I feel like it could very well be done. But this was the 2010s Capcom era, which they didn't really start out the decade in the greatest of lights. That basically being the fact that they basically did things that were anti-consumer at worst and just mediocre at best. Basically, they added in abilities to customize your character to really break the competitive scene, and there wasn't really a good way to play with it off unless you basically tell them, hey yo, turn it off when you're doing something like a tournament. And you yourself can go and buy different types of gems and packs and stuff like that through DLC that just felt very scummy at the time. And the way they handled DLC was not the greatest. They added in characters that you would think will be a part of the base game as DLC characters, and then some DLC characters you can't play with unless if you're on the PS3 version of the game, so Xbox fans are kinda just out of luck basically. Now look, it's one thing if it was just Cole McGrath, which is a PlayStation IP, infamous as a PlayStation game, but Pac-Man and Mega Man? Those are Bandai and Capcom properties. Those should be on everything, honestly. They're third parties. And what's worse is that when the game came out on 360, the Pac-Man and DLC stuff was on the disc as files. It knows that it's there, but it wasn't ever available to the public. Now, something that is interesting in hindsight was this was also a part of Sony's cross-buy initiative, basically making it available if you buy a game on the PS Vita, you're able to play it on the PS3 as well. That is super cool. Well, after one update in 2013, is this game worth the $2 I spent? It's time to hit the streets. This is Street Fighter Cross Tekken. We start out with one of the most hype openings I've ever seen to a fighting game. This rivals Street Fighter 4 and Tekken 7 respectfully, and it's honestly one of my favorite fighting game openings I've ever seen, with the song Honest Eyes playing in the background. This sets the tone perfectly, and the song itself can very well be an anime opening. Now, unlike Tekken 6, this game doesn't have a story mode, so everything story related is through the arcade mode. After picking some characters, we get this breadcrumb of a story, which honestly I have no idea how to put this together, and apparently no one else online knows how to put this together, so I'm going to do the best I can thanks to the wiki. Basically, the main plot of this is that this random box named Pandora has fallen to Earth, and it's up to the Street Fighters and or the Tekken fighters to go see what's up with this box, all while fighting different types of characters from both universes. Throughout the journey, you'll come across the rival fights that come in the form of the Tekken and or Street Fighter characters when you play as certain characters in the campaign. But right before you reach the final boss, you have one EX boss that you have to fight in the form of Jin for the Tekken series or Bison from the Street Fighter series. But then we reach to the end, and depending on the character, you can get Ogre from Tekken or Akuma from Street Fighter. After showing off my completely professional gaming skills in the form of Street Fighter Cross Tekken, I ended up beating Ogre and got this ending.
Ryu! God! What the? Yeah.
Having defeated many of the world's greatest fighters, Ken and Ryu finally reach Pandora. But then Ryu disappeared right before Ken's eyes. Ken searched all over the Antarctic, far and wide, but he was nowhere to be found. Even though there was no trace of Ryu, Ken refused to believe that a man who could overcome the Satsui no Hado could be defeated by Pandora. So Ken begins his journey to find his lost friend.
What? What are you talking about?
So at the end of the campaign, Ryu is gone, and when I try to play with different characters, it doesn't even add to a story. It has this generic, oh, the Pandora has fell to the box, it's up to you to go save the day, and it doesn't even add to the story mode. I am so lost with this entire narrative, and if anyone else knows the story of this game, please let me know. I'll leave my socials down below. And yeah, I know Street Fighter's narrative is not the most straightforward thing ever, but Tekken was a little bit more straightforward. I just kind of wanted a nice balance of a good style crossover story, but unfortunately we didn't get that with this game. Yeah, so the story is a little bit on the weaker side, but as a game, this might be one of my favorite Street Fighter styled games right next to MVC 3. The amount of movement, the speedy combos, just the overall gameplay tweaks that they gave to the Tekken characters made them like fit in straight with the Street Fighter characters. They just feel natural. I think it goes without saying, but any type of Capcom crossover fighter, if you know the character's movements of Street Fighter, you're going to be able to pick up this game relatively easily. And even the characters from the Tekken universe, I feel like if you know the general combos of these characters, you can still pull them off in this game. However, it does take a little bit to get used to, as Tekken's a bit more of a 2.5 3D game. I don't really know how to describe Tekken, and this is more of a traditional 2D styled game. This game is just endless Street Fighter fun. If you like any other Street Fighter games, this game will be the best for you. And if you're a Tekken fan looking for a Street Fighter-like experience, but with a little bit of familiarity, I do highly recommend this game. And like I said, I paid $2 for this game before, you know, the end of days. And I highly recommend anyone, if you're watching this before the end of June at the risk of dating this video hardcore, I highly recommend picking it up for $2 because it's the best $2 I've ever spent. I hope this doesn't kickstart World War III. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And I'm sorry, Naruto Clash of Ninja, you're not the most underrated fighting game to me anymore. I think this game stole the cake and ate it. Well, now that my eye is healing up, I guess it's now time for me to go talk to that bully. Maybe we'll make amends and watch a good movie together.
What the heck? This movie sucks!
Well, oh man. Special thanks to KattChatt for being a member of the Kingdom Keepers. If you want to become a Kingdom Keeper, link is in the description below.